Dealers, early access to our private dealer chat groups is now open. Join top dealers at cdgcircles.com. That's cdgcircles.com, or hit the link in the show notes. I'll see you inside. Today, I'm joined by Doug Gilmour, dealer principal of Malone Ford. After nearly 2 decades climbing the ranks at Ford, Doug took the ultimate leap buying and running a dealership. Not only did he leave behind an impressive career, but he bet the farm on his one shot at his ultimate dream. A big thank you to our sponsors for making this episode possible: Open Lane, Repair 360, and CDG Circles. And now let's get into the show. Doug Gilmour on the CDG podcast. Doug, welcome.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure you made a mistake. I don't know why I'm here, but this is awesome to be here.
I did not make a mistake. Actually, the mistake that I thought we made was when I saw a 13-year factory guy in the marketing department most recently, I believe, now a dealer. I was like, Doug, what's going on over here? Like, how did this happen? Right? I need the backstory. Who did you meet while you were at Ford as a marketer? And you're like, I need to be a dealer. Like, what is going on over here? How did this happen?
The best part is nobody at Ford knew I was doing what I was doing. So I ran everything behind the scenes because my background was marketing, sales, and service. So I knew all the guys, right? And I knew there'd be either a conflict of interest or just, these are all the people that approve me are people that I know personally, right? And I didn't want to put anybody in an awkward position. So as I went down this path, I did it truly independently on my own, without asking for any favors, without making anybody feel uncomfortable. So when I presented an application, it was, here's everything, signed, sealed, and delivered. What do you guys think? And so it was a pretty shocking conversation when I did that.
All right. So just so I understand this, you're at Ford at the moment, and there isn't like a program, right? Obviously, there isn't like, hey, Ford corporate, come be dealers. So what goes through your mind? This is a very atypical career path to go from factory to dealer this way. So what happened?
It's, that moment, what's going through your mind is, you're puckered up because you have no idea what the response is going to be, right? So you're basically saying, I want to move on and do something different. And is there a conflict? I didn't know Ford was going to be like, you know what? Hey, yeah, we'll review this, but you no longer have a job here, right? Like, that was the part that was nervous. Just made me nervous, right? And so the initial conversations were very hard. But the people that are at Ford were incredible. I mean, they couldn't have been more gracious. Leaders and mentors that I talked to, they were shocked. I mean, by the second day after they submitted my application, the regional manager, who also was a good friend of mine, he was like, Doug, they don't know what to do with you. Like, no one's done this in recent history where they've left, at Ford, where they've left the factory and bought a store. A lot of people have left to go run stores and go work for dealer groups. And, a lot of my friends have. But, no one had really tried just truly buying a store while they're at Ford. So it made for some very delicate and interesting conversations.
I can imagine. So what happens behind the scenes? Why did you do this?
Well, and so that's, this is why I love you, Yossi, because we're going to get into all the drama and everything else. But it's a long, journey of, maybe you're a wanderer, right? Like, I love challenges. I love new things. I had a stint in retail a long time ago. I mean, and I don't even know where to start to kind of get you to where we're at. But, if I jump to the end, I probably wasn't happy anymore being like in a big bureaucratic company. Nothing to do with Ford. I love Ford. I bleed blue. But I was on that, that bureaucratic, rat race, right? I was on the wheel just spinning, and I was good at what I did. And I had an awesome career, and I can't say anything bad about Ford, but at the end of the day, I wasn't making the kind of impact that I wanted to make, which is interesting, right? Because I was working on billion-dollar programs or running teams with billion-dollar sales. So the economic impacts of working at the factory are just incredible, right? But it was that bureaucratic, atmosphere, and it was no longer for me. And I didn't know it. I was in Vermont at a cabin on a lake, and it was in the summertime. And we were doing a celebration of life for my father after he'd passed away. And this was, maybe 3.5 years ago. And I was with some good friends from grade school, high school. And aside from my father passing away, I mean, it was a celebration of life. That part was fun. It was expected, no surprises. But they're like, you're not happy. Like, we're sitting by the water, like, what's going on? I was like, what are you guys talking about?
So they tell you this. They literally tell you this to your face.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like an intervention because like, I was like, what are you guys talking about? I was like, I have an awesome career, you know, at that point in time, I was a chief product marketing manager. So I'm working on future vehicles. What could be more cool? Like, you know, future EVs and stuff like that. And they're like, we can tell. And they got in my head and I started thinking about it. And, you know, and then one of my buddies sent me a podcast. I think it was from like Peter Attia, the doctor does all the cool, like, you know, interviews with people. He was interviewing this guy talking about you get stuck in this bureaucracy and you don't even know you're stuck. And again, it's the right thing for a lot of people. But for me, and I think it's just my makeup, they're like, no, we see you more like building things, you know, making an impact and things like that. Got in my head. And so, and honestly, being a dealer has always been in the back of my mind. It's always something I joke to my friends. When I retire from Ford, I'm going to be a dealer. I worked with dealers for years with Ford. I had a lot of field jobs, right? Had a stint, you know, running a family dealership for a few years, turning it around. So it's something I was like, I knew the dealer world. It wasn't, you know, foreign to me or like, oh, hey, I'm just going to go, you know, whimsy, you know, jump into something I had no idea about. But they're like, I think it's time. And so, you know, fast forward a few days after I was like, you know what? I think they're right. You know, and they're kind of, you know, breaking that mold for me. There was an ad from the Dave Canton Group, and I'm sure you've heard of them, and they're huge, one of the biggest, you know, M&A firms. But Dave he had a dealer, I think it was an accelerator program. So it's basically the ad was for, hey, if you're like a GM or something, you've always wanted to own your own dealership, give us a call. So I picked up the phone and I called them. And I said, I'm probably not at all what you guys, you know, are looking for. I'm a factory guy, but I've always dreamed about owning a dealership. I was like, what do you think about that? And the guy was completely shocked because usually he's talking to GMs and sales managers. And he goes, you know, most people, he's like, my job is pretty much to screen most people and help them understand why this probably isn't the right move or, you know, their ability to do something like this. He's like, you're a different story. And he's like, I need to have some other people call you. And so next thing I know, I'm getting a call, you know, from Ivan Raskanen. He's from Biltmore Consultants. So they're like the white label firm, M&A firm that Dave Canton had hired to manage this. And, you know, and Ivan was like, this is fascinating. Now he's a former like corporate guy, GE, you know, consultant for Hyundai, Kia. Now he does M&A, but his firm, and they still do it today, they help first time dealers. Like they're the guys that know how to do the unique financial engineering and know exactly what the factory is looking for. And so I started talking to Ivan, and he's like, I think there's something here if you're willing to go on the journey. He's like, this is a long journey. And I was like, I know. And that's the thing. Like, I'd approved a lot of buy sells on the other side of the fence. I'd been through them. I've helped dealers go through them, you know, and if anything, I probably realized, you know, I knew enough about it to realize if I ever wanted to buy a dealership, I would need help. You know, I think a lot of people their first time be like, no, I can do this. I can figure it out. It is complicated. And it's complicated for someone who knows a lot about it. And a lot of that complications is just managing all the resources, you know, from the right accountants, the right lawyers, you know, the right insurance agents on, you know, how do you set up you know, an SBA loan, the right banks, right?
So you went SBA route.
I went the SBA route. Yeah. Connor Duncan from Live Oak. Now, granted, like, again, this is why it's good having intelligent people on your team, people much smarter than me, is that I wouldn't have known to reach out to Connor, but Ivan had already had a relationship with Connor. He knew he'd be a good fit for Connor. So we reached out to Connor Duncan at Live Oak and put me in touch with him and helped me set up an SBA loan, which was way more financing than I thought I'd be eligible for. Again, why it's smart to just bring in people that know a lot more than you think you know.
So a couple questions there. First of all, you were working at the factory. You purchased a Ford dealership. Clearly some testament to the durability of the brand, your belief in the brand. What is it that led you to believe in the future of the brand, to put your own money, you know, to put your name? An SBA loan typically requires a personal guarantee, right? So that's a very strong belief in the brand. Why did you come out of there, and like, what led you to have that strong belief and conviction? Because you could have gone for any brand technically. So,
I mean, the good and bad about an SBA loan is that you can stretch the loan over 20 years. So, I mean, my conviction is really out there on the far horizon. So yeah, I can't ever get into like, what I know about like future products, but I worked on future products, right? Like I could see the vision behind the scenes of what Jim Farley's taken to the board of directors and, people like Jim Bombeck and what they want for the company, what they're trying to plan 5 and 10. I believe in it, right? I grew up with Ford. I've had family in Ford. My uncle worked for Ford. So I do bleed blue. And it's not that I'm at all opposed to, acquiring another franchise, but I was very clear to Biltmore and Ivins, like, hey, if I'm going to buy a dealership, because they had other stores for me, they're like, hey, we can get you in a store today. I said, no, if I'm doing this as Ford is for me. And it's, sometimes that's the irrational part of it, right? Like, so there was an irrational part for me. I was like, nope, I'm doing it with Ford, but I do believe in the company. I believe they've got the right products, the right lineup, they've got the right leadership, and beyond somebody like a Jim Farley, like the next tier leadership is awesome at Ford. Andrew Frick or Jim Bombeck. I mean, these guys are incredible in the depth that they have and what they bring and their, their years within the auto industries.
This episode is brought to you by OpenLane, recently voted the most preferred digital wholesale marketplace by dealers. They've been busy using the power of people and AI to build a more confident wholesale experience. OpenLane condition reports now feature AI-powered and inspector-confirmed exterior damage detection, high-quality engine audio recordings, and OBD2 codes decoded into plain English. If you've never used OpenLane before, or it's been a while since you have, you're eligible to earn up to $2,500 in buy or sale fee credits. Learn more at openlane.com/CDG or click the link in the show notes below. I think that question is especially important given the fact that you worked I saw on lots of EV marketing, and that was a pretty, tumultuous time for Ford EVs, right? Things have gotten better, and the market has changed and shifted and credits have gone away. And so I would say in some sense it's more stable now, but again, you were working at Ford during this time on, EV marketing, and it's just surprising to me. Wow, to go from there, I see you're smiling. It's to go from there to acquire a Ford dealership. It says something, at least in your long-term, conviction.
So a lot of my history with Ford too, but outside of like the product side, right, was being in the field, right? I've been a marketing manager in the field. I used to be the business development manager for Quick Lane in the central market area, which is like Texas and Oklahoma, going around helping dealers set them up and operate them. Going to FDF meetings on the marketing side, talking to dealers about, hey, what are we going to do for tier 2 advertising? All the way up to, eventually I was a regional manager in the Northeast, overseeing 130 dealers, helping them grow, working on their allocation, their service growth, their customer satisfaction. So I spent a lot of time in the field working with dealers. And the funny thing is I always looked back at it it wasn't so much work. I always found it fascinating. Like I was the kind of regional guy to go and tell the dealer, hey, this is how you're going to run your business. I just wanted to go in and just talk to people. I just love learning from these dealers and these guys. And if I could give them a nugget of wisdom, and it usually wasn't something that I was smarter than, I was like, hey, I've seen a few other stores trying this, and this, because I could bring that 20 group worldliness a little bit to them. And they're like, hey, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but let me go check it out, right? But it was learning. Like, you had Fred Beans on once, right? So I used to call him Fred Beans.
Legend.
He is a legend. And I love seeing Fred. Every time I would see him, it was so educational. And I just love going to see Fred, to sit down and like take somebody like that, should know everything, right? He's been doing it for, I don't know, Fred's in his mid 80s. He's been doing it since the 50s, started out with a gas station, and now he's got 30 stores and one of the biggest parts guys in the country. And he's to this day, he's still curious, right? Like he's still learning about the business. And he's, I'm in there, he's showing me all his books on Audible that he's reading as he's driving around in his used Escape, right? But he's learning, and he's sharing these nuggets. And, I after I bought the store, like I didn't know I had all this excess, used parts inventory, obsolete inventory. I'm like, I'm just going to offload this now and take the bite up front so I can free up the space for my parts team and just start clean. But I couldn't get off of $50,000 of this old parts. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give Fred a call. I haven't talked to him in 3 years. He probably doesn't even remember who I am. I called him like at 5 o'clock at night. He picked up like on the second ring. He's like, Doug, how you doing? Wow. I was like, oh my gosh. He goes, I'm in a board meeting right now with my, wholesale distribution team. But yeah, I saw you calling. I was like, well, I was like, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Fred. No, what do you got? I just bought a dealership. And he was like, really? And I start talking about what I'm doing. I was like, I'm stuck on, this obsolete inventory, but I figured I'd just ask you if you, knew anybody I should call or how I should handle it. He goes, I'm sending you over, I'm going to have the head of my, parts distribution center give you a call, and then we'll see what we can do. And then he starts talking to me. I was like, hey, well, how about your sales process? I don't really have a sales process yet, Fred. I just bought the store. He goes, well, I'm going to send you over my sales process. And he goes, what do you think about, single price, one vehicle price and all this other stuff? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I thought we're still negotiating. He goes, I'm still negotiating too. He goes, I don't like one price. He goes, Doug, I don't like one price, because it's not the right price for every customer. I mean, he's just thoughtful and energetic, but it's something that I learned from all dealers, right? Like it's, because I've met a lot of dealers that, within 2 seconds are just telling you they know how it is, right? They're also, a lot of those guys aren't always the guys that are growing. Yeah.
And the lifelong learner. That was definitely the impression I got, I had of him, after he was on my podcast. And, I've known of Fred I grew up in this area near Fred, near the Doylestown and, area. Yep. But, Fred is just such an incredible operator. And the enthusiasm, like you said, the attention to detail, it's very, very just incredible to watch from the side. I got to ask you, and I want to talk more about your entry, like you said, your kind of first initial days, months, or weeks, months into dealership. But from your vantage point now, you've been a dealer now for several years. And what is the factory getting wrong? I bring on dealers all the time here and I ask them, I say, hey, like, what would you do differently, or how do you operate with the factory? But I don't really bring on many factory guys or former factory guys in your case and say, what would you like the dealers to do differently and why? So you've seen both sides now, at length. And so what does the factory not understand about dealers or dealerships? What do you think, if anything?
The first one, and they've now fixed it, was the importance of like a good field team, and, during COVID, a little before that, and this was a prior regime, different leadership, they cut way back, on the reps that call in the stores, right? They cut them back and put more dealers into call centers and whatnot. And then, the few reps that were left just had so many stores, and Ford sales and shares started falling, right? And customer sat fell off. And, and dealers were frustrated because they didn't have, the help they needed when something's going on with a customer or the vehicle they're looking for or something in service or parts, right? And I feel like the OEMs with the best field teams are the ones that kill it, right? And Ford had that for years. I mean, I think I was always so proud. I felt like Ford had one of the best field teams, the best partnerships with dealers. I would see it, like I would be in dealer council meetings when I was a regional manager, and Andrew Frick would be leading them. And he is a dealer partner through and through. And it was, if if we had a rational conversation and things that we were going in that management above us to say, hey, you know what, this is probably not going to happen or in the budget or whatever. But we found a rational way talking about it with the dealers. Andrew would take it back and be like, no, we'll find a way, like a true partner in the dealers. Then I felt like we lost that for a little while. And now Ford is getting it back, right? They've built up the field team. You've got people like Rob Caffel, head of sales. I mean, he is a dealer guy through and through.
So yeah, question. When you say a good field team, how do you define that? Like, cause a lot of factory people do listen to this podcast, and a lot of dealers complain about the manufacturer. And listen, dealers aren't perfect. Manufacturer's not perfect. It's both sides has its, its flaws, but what's a good field team? Like, what's your definition of that for any factory person listening that might be curious?
It's the support. And a lot of it's not the individuals, right? There's always great individuals in the field, but do they have the resources to help the dealers, right? And when the field team is, they're cut of their resources, they have no budgets for customer sat, or again, one rep has, 20 plus dealers that the poor young man or woman's got to call on, right? Straight out of college, right? Or they've cut back on their training. It's hard for them to provide value. But then when you get, right now, like my rep maybe my sales rep might have 10 or 12 stores. I've got a service rep, the same thing. They're learning the business, but they're there to help, right? So if we got a question, and I push this on my team every day, if they're struggling, I was like, have you reached out to your rep yet? Have you called the sales rep? And you call them, and they might not have the answer, but what it is they got the resources to get the answer to help you out.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, and, and some of the ones that are consistent are like Toyota. I'm so jealous, right? But I always hear Toyota like the Toyota factory and that partnership with the dealers is just fantastic, right? It's less about forcing programs on the dealer and more about how do we partner together and just, get rid of the roadblocks and just help make the customers happy. And Ford is back there. So, I mean, Ford did the full U-turn on that, which is awesome because that's always
and it's not. And I'm not asking this question exclusive to Ford. I think a lot of it will be from the Ford perspective because you were there, but I think in general. Yeah. Okay, so putting field team aside, that's one thing. I believe you said you had another thing. What else comes to mind as like a misunderstanding?
It's not so much a misunderstanding. It's the consistency with products and how important it is to dealers, right? And the EVs is the most glaring example of that, right? Like there's a lot of ICE vehicles, not just Ford, right? You can name pretty much most manufacturers where all these vehicles are getting, chopped from the cycle plan because they've got all these EVs coming. Well, now the EVs aren't coming, and all of a sudden the cycle plan and your portfolio is starting to look a little weak on what you got to offer for customers. But for a dealer needs a full family of vehicles to offer for a customer, right? And you can't pick and choose because you start as a manufacturer. If you're picking and choosing, like, well, these are truly our highest margin vehicles. Well, that might work in California or Michigan, but does it work in Florida or Minnesota? You need a full diverse set of vehicles because certain ones are going to sell better in different parts of the market, and so and again, now Ford's focused on vehicles. I mean, I think, I've heard a lot from friends that have Stellantis stores, right? Like they came up real short on a lot of vehicles for a while. Now they're leaning back into it, like Tim Kuniskis, which is awesome. But just to think how far Jeep and Ram fell off. Those are iconic brands. Like how could they fall? And they did. It's good for me in my local market, but in general, I love the auto industry, so I'd love to see great brands succeed.
What was your perception on, foreign vehicles or potential? I know Chinese vehicles is a bit further out, but when you were at Ford and moving into buy a Ford store, did disruption go through your mind, right? Like, will Ford be here for another 2 decades? Like, what kind of thoughts went through your mind? And do these existential thoughts cross your mind? Because I'm genuinely curious, like the EV program has cost a lot of money for Ford. They've invested billions and billions and billions. They've gotten a lot of flack for that, for better or worse. That's just a reality. And so does the staying power of the brand? I know I asked you in the beginning, why go after a Ford store? And you answered that, but I'm still trying to understand if being in the factory and seeing potential existential threats, other brands rising, if that went through your mind as something to be, of concern in the near term.
All right. So, and maybe this will help frame my answer too. So for someone like me who's worked in the factory, right, had a great career, which is, and nothing I can say bad about it, but I'm not making, dealer money, right, where I'm just going to go buy a store. Right. So for me to
not making dealer money, I gotta make a shirt. I gotta make a shirt and give it to people that come on the pod. I'm not making dealer money. I love that.
Because as you know, Yossi, to buy a store, even a small store is expensive. And especially when the factory says, we want to see, 50-50 debt to equity ratio, right? Like, so you just got to show the money in your bank. Yeah, I got a huge SBA loan, but I still had to show 50% of that as equity, right? And for me to come up with that kind of equity meant leveraging everything, right? Like I think this is funny to say because my dad was a no kidding cattle dealer. Like I bet the farm, like I leveraged our house, 401k, the kids' college funds. I took a HELOC, credit card debt, everything, knowing that I was going to have 30 to 60 days of once I made my decision, to leave Ford to do this, that everything's bet, and then is a slim margin of error to start paying it off, right? Like, does that debt accelerate fast enough that I don't make it in the first, couple months? So this is what's going through my head as I'm thinking about, is this the right bet to make, right? And I like risk, and so it's one of those things that, so I bet the farm, I rolled the dice, but part of that is I was looking kind of out at the future, and Ford is one of those brands that's going to survive. It gets a lot of, this is part of it is, and this is controversial. Because there's going to be a lot of, probably you have analysts from Wall Street listening, who knows, but the Ford family still has a tremendous amount of control and influence at the company. A lot of people do not like that. I think it's a good thing because it gives it that long-term vision. They're willing to make hard decisions for the future to endure. And they're willing to make decisions that not only just impact the bottom line, but also decisions that impact, the employees, the communities, the country, the world, right? I mean, it's incredible to kind of see that, when you put it together and you hear someone like a Bill Ford talk or an Elena Ford, to see their passion for the dealers, see their passion for the communities, not only for dealers, but, where the factories are located, the importance of having a manufacturing base in the United States, for our own, economic security, right? And so not only with things like that, but then he gives that long-term vision is, we're going to have great products in the future. I mean, because that's what we are, right? And usually Ford, whenever Ford makes some mistakes and their back's against the wall, they always bounce back. I mean, and it's been shown over and over again, even in recent history. And so, yeah, I think there's without a doubt, because I mean, one of my jobs in product marketing was studying all these brands, especially China. I mean, I was working on products for China with our China team. So I was up, late at night and early in the morning just to deal with the time changes. There's incredible, car companies in China just with their tech and what they're doing. But, some of the questions are, and it's hard to see the full transparency. Are they all profitable? I mean, like, there's a lot of SEO, kind of going into that is, state owned, financing going into that where, are they there yet? Right. So it's great tech. Is it going to work everywhere? And a lot of them have already gone under. A lot have survived. A lot are incredible, like BYD, which is, a very cool company. And honestly, just brings that we need that competition, right? Like if Ford was the only brand, I mean, the products would be boring, right? Like, so to me, it's good competition.
We don't have that competition though. But we don't have it here,
No, we absolutely don't. That's why. But I think having that globally, we will at some point. I don't know when, but I don't know how long you can kind of keep out global brands like that because they're global. They're in Europe. They're in South America.
No, Jim Farley has said he drives, a Chinese brand vehicle. I forget which one specifically. You probably know, but he said, it's just phenomenal. He said he hasn't seen anything like this, or not to quote him, he tweeted this, I believe. But it's something super impressive at, half the price point. You're right. We don't know the economics of it. It is state funded to a certain extent. And maybe they don't need to be profitable. Maybe this bakes into a larger, a different type of vision to where profitability is just not the goal. And so, I don't think that's a strong, it's just, we couldn't rely on that because you can have companies out there that will just not be profitable for decades just to, win the market share, as the Chinese brands have done. If you go to, Europe and you go to certain countries in Asia, I mean, it's just, I want to say Africa, which I haven't been, but I've heard, South America. I mean, you see these things everywhere. So it's pretty incredible.
It really is. I mean, we're so fearful of new brands coming in, right? But I mean, think of like, the Koreans, and it's a little before my time, but you think of when Hyundai Kia first were coming to the US, I mean, and it looked like, funny looking Mercedes or whatever. Look at them now. Incredible, gorgeous, world-class products. I mean, but it's just driving us all to be better. I mean, so things like that are coming. I mean, whether it's 5 years or 10 years.
I thought about this actually, what you just said, and I'm probably going to butcher this. So someone who's just smarter and well-researched right now is going to, listen to this and do some researching. But when I think about how these brands were able to enter the US, penetrate the markets, and other brands and the domestic brands flourished alongside them over time. And again, there are bumps along the road. I think of a couple things, right? Which is, without seeing the numbers, like immigration was on the rise significantly, right? And like, say up to the, I don't know. I'm not even going beyond the year 2000, but let's just go up to the year 2000. So you had rising immigration. So more people. You also had, a net positive birth rates. Not that you don't have today, but last I saw, I want to say on X, was like birth rates have been, plummeted significantly over the last 2 decades. And so that of course results in, reduce demand, and it takes time, but I'm just kind of putting these pieces together, and I was saying, like, is vehicle demand going to rise or is it going to decline? And how is that as a factor going to impact these manufacturers in the future and the ability for additional manufacturers? Okay. So that's kind of the human macro side. Then there's the other side, which is just technologically, right? If these things get so freaking advanced and you need such crazy budgets for R&D, which means you also need to model them out at greater numbers, greater volumes, you're going to have to see consolidation, right? Because in the past, maybe to build a vehicle was less expensive, or maybe not less expensive, but required less research and development, or maybe that research and development did not need to be, reinvested at such a high clip every single year. Then your overall operating model, I would assume you just did not need to sell as many cars to be profitable. But now, as those inputs have changed, you need to sell higher volumes, as we've seen with EVs, that, we haven't even gotten close to them, which all roads lead to consolidation. So it's like, again, this is like super napkin math. This is dealer math, right? This is totally dealer math. This is not Wall Street math. So excuse me, Wall Street, but I just say, like, it's going to get tougher for the manufacturers. If you could look at just, the macro, you look at the, population figures, or, just consumption, and you think about technology and the needs or requirements from a brand in terms of, how much they can invest. So I hope you enjoyed my dealer math there.
It is awesome dealer math. And it's fascinating to watch, because especially when you talk consolidations, like think of all the stories where you see these big consolidations and then you see these nasty breakups, right? Like, you were really set up. I mean, Marchione did an amazing job, with what he was doing with Stellantis, right, before he passed away. But now they're struggling, but maybe they're going to figure it out again, right? Or the Nissan Reno, like, think about like how that fell apart. But, even Ford, I mean, Ford is a poster child for it, right? Like, Ford consolidated. I mean, I forgot how many brands they had. They had Volvo, Land Rover, Jaguar, right? Lincoln, Mercury. I know I'm forgetting something, but, Aston Martin of all vehicles, right? They had all these, and then it wasn't working. And then Al Mulally chopped them all, and all of a sudden Ford started doing better again. Like, so it's fascinating. Because you're right. The economics say there should be consolidation. It's just, few have pulled it off. Toyota hasn't consolidated, and they kill it.
Yes.
They kill it. I mean, no one's even close to them. I don't know. They made last year $30 billion, sold the most cars of anybody, and their market cap is a fraction of what Tesla's is, but they kill it.
This episode is brought to you by Repair 360. If you're in the used car business, you know wasted time is wasted money. Check out Repair 360, the first and only reconditioning software that connects every function in the dealership to tighten recon and help you sell more cars. No more hounding vendors. Goodbye endless texts and hallway chases. Repair 360 connects all the dots. See where every car is and what its recon is costing minute to minute in real time. Go to repair360.com or click the link in the show notes below. Incredible. Doug, what do you think? You were a marketer for Lincoln most recently. What do you think about Lincoln, the future of Lincoln?
So I don't know the future, like, so I was working on future EVs, and that they've obviously changed course since I was there, right? I love the products that are out today. I mean, you look at a Navigator, you look at an Aviator, the new Nautilus won a tremendous amount of awards. So, I mean, they've got, gorgeous products. I'm just hoping the factory stays behind it, right? They just need their resources. They've got awesome dealers. They've got great products. They just need more products, and I hear that from Lincoln dealers, like, hey, we've got great products, but this Ford, give us a few more, and I get that now that I'm on the Ford side, and you're like, yeah, I'd like a little bit more product diversity too. So I totally get where they're coming from. So they've got great products. I'm just, and I believe they will. I just hope they get the vehicles to the dealers in time, like the new products and new generations over the next couple of years.
Is that your concern?
Yeah, but it is, because when you live in the product world, everything takes so long. It's not like, oh, well, the EVs are away. Let's just come out with a new, flux capacitor for whatever. It's like a 5-year product plan, right? It's the design, it's the engineering, it's in the timeline, the lead time, and it's for everybody. Does take forever. I mean, Tesla brags, but they're just updating software. But if you're updating sheet metal and design and platforms, it's you need that time to do it right. You need the design, the research to make sure the customers are going to love it. You're forecasting out something that's going to look beautiful and sexy and exciting in 3 to 6 years. It's complicated. But that's how so many manufacturers get it right and have awesome products on the road today.
But do you think there's something like it seems like we have this tale of two worlds where you have the Teslas, you have very few SKUs, relatively speaking, right? Like a couple models, a couple colors. There's just not that many variations of purchasing that vehicle. And then on the other hand, you have other brands such as Ford, where you have, all these different variations, all these different colors. Do you think it needs to be that way? Like, could Ford go more Tesla with fewer models, fewer variations, streamline the supply chain, make it easier to get product into people's hands, right? Likely also reduce costs along the way because your supply chain is, a bit simpler. I know you're not you weren't like the head of supply chain or anything, but you were a marketer and you did have to control product and timing. Is there a world where we see that kind of stuff, the more simplicity?
So as like a former marketeer, right? Like, and as an owner of a dealership now, which I think makes me just a customer advocate, I truly believe customers want choice. Could be paint colors, could be interior colors, it could be options, moonroofs, massaging seats, whether you're a luxury customer, cloth seats versus leather, 22-inch wheels versus 18s. And at the end of the day, there's so many aftermarket companies that retrofit Teslas, that put leather interiors in, or put packages on the outside that make them look modified and different than what their neighbors have. At the end of the day, customers do want choice. And so I think customers, what I believe, I speculate, and my hypothesis would be, is that customers are just making a sacrifice for Tesla. Because what Tesla does have is they have awesome technology. They really do. And they got an awesome brand that Elon Musk has created. That brand is volatile, but it's still awesome, right? And that's the speculation that's driving the stock price so high too, right? Like, so people are buying into the brand, they're buying into the tech, and they're willing to make a sacrifice. Like, I don't want a black Tesla with, or the black and cloth vegan interior, because, it doesn't match my Birkin bag. But, right now I want an EV, and and I want to be, well, now it's changing based on politics, right? But pre-politics, right? Everybody just wanted to be part of the Elon crowd, right? That was a very, forward thinking, tech forward type of crowd. Now it's a different crowd, but it's still brand based, which is fascinating.
I agree with you that consumers make a sacrifice when, let's say that you buy a Tesla, or I should say differently, you make a sacrifice in certain elements. I think that there is a price or value associated with choice. And I think the danger for an OEM is to be stuck in the messy middle, right? If you maybe remove a couple options, but not enough to create, or you're not creating some other value alongside, right? Maybe the vehicle is then inexpensive enough or cheap enough to where it's affordable or whatever maybe. I do believe that it's at least worth exploring, what is of most value and where can we maybe streamline to get costs down? Because I really think affordability is going to continue being the biggest challenge here. We haven't seen a massive decline in prices in the last couple of years. And yes, prices have somewhat come down, but average transaction prices, if you look at new vehicles, have stayed very much elevated. We've now, done away with the EV tax credits. Used cars are in no better shape. They've come down. Prices have come down in used to like the mid 20s, but you have a lot less supply. I think about these things. I try to go to like the source and say, is there a different way? And I want to be very clear. Like, I'm coming to this with like full humility. Like, there's people that spend days, weeks, years on this stuff. I'm just, over here, yapping away, giving my thoughts, but I'm one consumer. So I have an opinion, and I welcome anyone that's listening who's way more experienced in this and deals with it on a daily basis, maybe at the manufacturer, to hit me up and give me their take. So.
No, you're absolutely right, Yossi. And there's whole teams at the factory. Like, I would spend hours with teams of engineers and finance and everybody, and how we can reduce cost, right? And as a marketer, you're usually the counterpoint to those questions. Interesting, before I left, I remember it was like, we had removed, like, Explorer was one of the vehicles. We removed a ton of content and a ton of configurations, but then they couldn't quantify. We couldn't quantify the savings. We're like, is it really saving us money at the factory, right? Mm-hmm. Some things clearly do, right? Like, if you can remove certain lines at a factory and increase efficiency. And then to your point, it's like the value. It's like there's certain items that do have big value and other ones that don't. Like, really going from 12 paint colors to 10 paint colors is going to save that much money. And I guess it depends how many paint colors the line's set up to manage, right? So you're right. It's all of, and as a dealer now, like, I'm also, speaking out of one side of my mouth because I can't carry every combination on my lot, and I sell most of my vehicles off my lot, right? So our job is to help a customer realize that this is a vehicle they've always wanted, regardless if it's the right color, if it has a moon, or if it not.
Yeah. So you step into that dealership. Now we fast forward to present day. What aspects of just being a dealer have surprised you? Is it maybe something that you're like, wow, I can't believe this is being done this way. We got to do better. Or maybe something where you're just like, I didn't even know that this exists. Like, what has surprised you?
For me, coming from the factory side of it, right? It's the human side of it, right? Like on the factory side, you're in big teams and people are moving around every 18 months. And so you kind of get to know somebody and they move on and you're moving up or you get promoted. Most people are successful when you're high level in the factory, right? So few people are talking about finance problems or anything like that, right? So when you're at a small business, you're there for everything, right? Like these people, I've got people on the team that have been on this same team in the same office 20 plus years, long before I got there, right? People with family issues, people with conflicts within the team, people that just need to be reassured. And it was kind of like, wow, I just need to have an open door every day, and I do an open door. But I mean, so much of it was, I was thinking, hey, this is going to, coming from the factory, I'm ready for it to be all numbers, PowerPoints, right? I can analyze and put together a great, PowerPoint presentation of what we're going to do. And then I found out of like, oh my God, it's so much about hard conversations or uncomfortable conversations. And it's not just
emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it's the EI side of it.
Other than emotional intelligence, how has the store performed? When you came in today, I mean, how profitable are we talking? Like, where are you at?
So a little stressful the first couple months, right? So coming in, I'm a long time ago, I was a former Marine, right? And so, all about planning. I had
no way.
Formas.
Why did I know that?
I don't know, but I had, so like coming into it, like I've planned out everything, right? We're going to take this and we're going to, conquer the world. And luckily, one of the biggest things that you learn in the Marines is, every good plan, doesn't survive first contact. So you better be ready to adapt, right? And it was for sure, right? Nothing matched up with my pro forma, like we're losing money the first month in, lost more money the second month in. I mean, you're always talking about like, profit as a percent of sales. Like mine was like -4%. And going to the store with like, $1.5 million working capital, like there's only so many more months I can do this before, like, I was like, this could be embarrassing if I, go bankrupt in 6 months, just start.
Before you got to call Fred Beans to bail you out.
Before I got called Fred to bail me out. But, so yeah, we were losing money, but what I could tell, right, and this also is like where I can just, attribute, just the lessons I learned in the Marines. Is just being calm,
Please.
Right? Like, yeah, there's a lot going on, but be calm and look through, like, are we doing things the right way? And luckily I inherited an awesome team, right? And I could tell, we were changing things, but we were doing the right things. I bought it the end of October. We're going into November and December. And when you're in northern New York, I mean, basically Canada, those are your slow months, right? I mean, despite what's going on in the rest of the country. And so we were slow. I had startup. I mean, we weren't really selling cars till mid-November because getting DMSs online and everything else. Once we had that online, all of a sudden, started making a little bit of money. But I was like, but my bank account is going, why is my bank account still going down? Like I'm running out of cash in my bank account. But I was like, everything is showing us making money. It turned out there was some clerical error in India with Ford paying me on all my incentives and everything else. So now all of a sudden I'm not getting my weekly incentive, and everything else that Fords do, based on the vehicles you buy and all the, the below the line margin stuff.
And how much are we talking about? How much money were you owed?
I don't know, $50,000 a week or something or more.
Wow.
So
it's real, yeah.
I'm burning through cash and it was all coming up right before the NADA meeting. I was like, guys, all the regional team. I was like, if we don't figure this out before the NADA meeting, I'm going straight to the top at the factory meeting and letting them know that you guys are going to be the ones that put me out of business because the cash was, and finally got that back online. But it was like a true up of like several $100,000. When you're in startup mode, it doesn't sound like a lot of money today, but when you're in startup mode, and you hadn't made money yet, it's a lot of money, especially when you lost money your first.
Of course.
So it's, just kind of going into it, from that mindset, it was like, it's just staying calm and having trust in your team and a confidence in your team that, hey, if we're doing things the right way, it's going to come around. We're taking care of customers. We're selling cars. We're turning wrenches. It's going to come around. And it did. And it's come around, and the team is grown tremendously, right? One of the things I instituted, and again, it's just kind of like the discipline from the military side of it, is like, everyone's going to be trained. It's a small rural store, so it wasn't a lot of formal training, right? But I joined NCM 20 group. So I'm a part of an NCM 20 group, joined it pretty much day one. They reached out to me and invited me to join. I was like, yeah, this sounds great. I'd reached out to NADA and I didn't get a call back. And then a group from NCM called me and said, hey, we heard about you. Somebody knows you. And I joined that group. Those phenomenal dealers from around the country, hard chargers. I mean, this isn't a kind of a group where we're just going to have fun. I mean, we're drilling each other, every time, all day long in the meetings. I mean, they've made me so much better. So I got lucky there. But I learned a lot about NCM. They've got this awesome training program. They have their own, general managers academy. They've got senior training for like sales managers, service managers. So I bought into the full training program and said, hey, all the leadership team is going through this and everybody's been through it. And it's just amazing how much it's opened up their eyes. It's one thing for me to know something, right? But it's getting buy-in. Like, I'm the factory guy coming in. Some of these guys have been doing it for 20 years. Like, I might know how to conceptually do something and I can say it, but if they don't believe me, like, what kind of real credibility do I have coming in, right? So I could be the guy that just starts barking orders and you will do this. But I knew if I didn't get buy-in, nothing was going to happen. It was all about the buy-in, right? And again, like, that's a lesson for the military. It's not about barking orders. It's about trust, earning respect, getting people to buy into whatever the mission is. And so I knew, I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to be telling them this. But I'm also going to get other industry experts because they're with other sales managers from across the country, other service managers. So they're hearing how important it is to do used cars or to focus on ELR or do video MPIs, getting the team to go through that. So with that, so tying it all together, whether it's training and focusing on the key metrics that are going to drive the business growth. I mean, yeah, we're doing great. The store's had in August, we had our best month ever, including the store's 60-year history. In September, we had another best month ever, including the store.
What's the net to sales percentage there?
We're now at 3%, which I think is great considering where I came from. And there's a lot of startup.
You came from a 7% swing. That's a big deal.
And there's a lot of startup. I'm still paying down. All my debt is also, not all of it. A lot of my debt is still tied up in my expenses. So, but I can tell you also, like, my NCM group, I think that averages 4.8. So like, my guys are like, I'm still on the right side of the page. I'm like, but I'm up to 3 guys, and they're like, and I've got guys in there that I'm 4 dealers that are over 7%. If I remember correctly, I mean, they're killing it, right? So like, I'm with people that know how to, operate a business profitably.
4 dealers over 7%. What do you think they're doing?
They're doing that's the thing, Yossi. They're doing everything. They're not just a new car dealer, right? They're a used car dealer. They're a great service shop. They're great parts.
They're not one-dimensional.
They're not. No, it's multi-dimensional, and they're consistent too, right? There's discipline and consistency, and there's a lot you can learn. Like like a lot of my vendor ideas came from them. I knew things I needed to work on, but then I'd get these vendor ideas from them, go back and implement, and just, huge step forwards and different things.
This episode is brought to you by CDG Circles. Running a dealership today takes more than it ever has between new technology, regulations, and constant change. But the hardest part is doing it alone. I've been there. No one to call when things got tough, no place to ask what's actually working for you right now. Is this vendor legit? How would you fix this problem in your service department? And much, much more. And that's why I built CDG Circles, a new kind of peer group for top performing dealers. With Circles, you get a dealer group chat, structured sessions, real-time conversations, all with the full confidentiality, antitrust compliance, and a group of dealers who actually get it. Our goal is to end the isolation that costs dealers time, money, and clarity. We're not a 20 group. There's no travel, we're not retrospective, and we don't group you by brand. Circles is for dealers who are looking for in-the-moment insights. Almost like having a personal sounding board of top-notch dealers who are playing on your level. Over 1,000 dealers joined our original waitlist, and this month, we've officially opened up signups to additional founding members. So join us and be part of the first wave taking the car business back into our own hands. Join join us at cdgcircles.com or click the link in the show notes below.
Incredible. So what's next? Are we going to buy another store? Are we going to continue growing this? Do you have any interest? Your family, you put them through quite the roller coaster with this. I didn't even ask you about that. Like, what was the family impact, and how did that go?
I was shocked at how supportive my wife is, right? Like, I'm like, honey, we're gonna leverage everything. We're just gonna put it out there. She's because I've moved so many times.
She's
before,
a keeper.
Right?
She's a keeper,
right? Like, so she's been, this last move to Michigan. It's hard for her to keep any sort of job because I was moving every 2 years, right? And so
where did you move from, Doug? Where did you move from?
So for me, it's been bouncing between like New York and Texas, Michigan multiple times. And so those types of moves, mostly with Ford, and then, most recently, we had nothing to fall back on, right? Like because I'm betting the cushion too, right? I'm betting, like, hey, we got nothing to fall back on. She's like, and she's like, I know you can do it. She had confidence in me, and I couldn't have done it had she not been there, supporting me like that. So yeah, the family is getting me all a little misty, thinking about, because it's what it's all about, right? It's
so
your family
important.
having your back. Yeah.
It's so important. Having that support system. It's just, it sounds cliche, but it's not. Like when I'm 12 hours in the office, someone's holding the fort down. You cannot do it alone, So I totally respect it, and I understand where you're coming from, because to do anything great, as they say, you need a team. So
no,
that comes in many.
Yeah. So some of the sacrifice I made, like we thought.
Please.
So we're in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That'd been where we're at for 3 years. And so I bought the store in northern New York. Beautiful town. It's on the edge of the Adirondacks. It's near Lake Placid. I mean, there's lakes and mountains. We're skiers. We're hikers. I mean, it's just gorgeous, right? We were going to move. And then it was kind of like, we moved the kids so many times, right? And then we started talking about, like, they're doing good in school. They're doing good in high school. They're doing good in middle school.
Oh, no.
Can we make this work? Can we make it work where, because all of a sudden what I didn't know, I guess I didn't forget, is that going into small business and entrepreneurship, I get a little more control of my schedule back. Like, I was a slave to the bureaucracy, and it's just because I'd let myself be a slave to it, right? When I was at Ford, like, I had no problem working around the clock all day long, because
you wanted to win, I would take a different perspective. Like, you were playing the game on the field, and you wanted to be the best at it, which I would do the same. Like, if I was in your position, I would be putting my heart into it, because that's just, if I do something, I actually have this tattoo to myself, but it's like, do what you do and do it well. Like, if you do something, like, you go all in.
Yeah. So. And that's how I was at Ford, and I loved it, right? But I was burning out. Like, so the funny thing is right now I split my time between northern New York and Michigan, and I now spend more time with my kids than I was when I was at Ford, right? Like, I'm more present,
Wow.
back for the moments when it matters. And so, like, I fly back on the weekend, so I'm out the dealership during the week. And again, it was skills that I learned, from this so long ago. Like, I went to business school, like, got my MBA. I have all these trainings and things. And like, some of my best military lessons is like when I was a kid in the Marines, right? But so much of it is how do you create a team that if you take a bullet in the head, that they're going to keep running and keep on the mission, right? And so I've always led a team like that every time. And it's the same way I've set up this dealership. Like, I've built a team from a general manager down that I can trust, right? And this team is killing it for me, right? And it wasn't like that when we started, but we built it up, and I want them to have that ownership. I want them to have that, that success from winning. They didn't have the transparency. They've got the transparency of seeing, all their metrics. Many of them are paid off their own department bottom lines. They've got big commissions. So as they've been killing it, I mean, they're reaping the rewards of it, right? Like, and I love it. It is awesome. So, like, I've got a team there. So, like, it's, here it is, Friday afternoon, it's Halloween. I was able to fly back and be with the kids for the weekend. And, I've got that flexibility, and it's and I'll fly back. The funny thing is, I fly into Montreal. So, like, people still shout, like, so you're in New York? Yeah. I was like, yeah, but I fly out of Montreal into Detroit. Like, I'm an hour from Montreal where the dealership's at.
Wow. You have a very calm demeanor about you. You're very easy to talk to. So I'll give you that as a compliment, because Appreciate I think it. In the dealership setting, that's a very important thing, right? To be, easily approachable. So take that. All right. So before we wrap up, you mentioned a couple of things throughout. I was writing this down. You mentioned earlier, like video MPIs, little technology stuff. I'm curious to know, as you've had this, again, 7-point swing from unprofitability to profitability, right? And working with your team to get there, has there been anything meaningful changed within, your systems, your tech, how you do business? I know process tech is obviously related, but anything specific that comes to mind, that you've implemented that's been very successful for you?
Yes, some of the things were implemented, some of the things we added, right? So like when I got there, the store had been using Viato, right? But we didn't sell hardly any used cars, but they had Viato, right? And I was at my NCM 20 group, I'm like, and I was the worst in the ratio of new to used. Like we'd be selling, 40 to 50 new a month and 10 used a month, right? So I was like, not even non-existent. I'm like, hey guys, what I need to do? I was like, and one of the guys, William, he's like, you got Viato? I was like, yeah. He goes, how often are you meeting with your coach? I said, well, I think the team meets with him once a month. And he's like, our team meets with our coach weekly. And he's like, and I'm in most of those meetings. And we do everything the coach says. And I'm like, Roger that. I guess. And so I started getting meetings and realizing and all of a sudden, just me being in the meetings, right? One, Viato realized, our coaches.
The Viato guys are very good.
The
Viato guys are very good.
Their training, their background, their experiences. And once they realized, okay, these guys looks like they're getting engaged. They saw me getting in the meetings. They saw us asking for weekly meetings. My team, I think they saw how important, I considered it now. And all of a sudden it was like when we're having a merchandising discussion, yep, we're going to make sure there's, pictures of everything, or we're going to improve the stories of all these vehicles, or yeah, we're still, wholesaling too many cars, right? So, our used is, already it jumped the first year, and just year over year we're up another 30%, right? We're now averaging, 35 to 40 used a month. And we're with the sky's the limit on the used side, and we're still figuring it out and learning it. But that's been, one of our testaments of success is we do great on the new side. We have 200% sales expectancy. So there's only so much higher you can go on the new side, right? But used, the sky's the limit. And so many of the dealers that I respect, I'm like, wow, you guys are awesome. You realize they're also great used car dealers, right? And it's understanding that side of it. So that's one of the ones we're getting better at. One of the ones we implemented is I was trying to figure out the service side, and another guy's like, hey, you ever heard of Dynatron? So, and I know there's some other competitors out there to Dynatron, but Dynatron's a great one. So we signed up with Dynatron. It's kind of like the Viato, service, right? And so then we started really diving into ELRs, and we're still and then doing weekly meetings with a service manager there. And we're like, wow, our pricing is all off. And all of a sudden realize, and then there's real data behind it. So it's, we were guessing, team had to guess the price.
What did you figure out about ELRs? What did you discover there?
Ours was incredibly low, right? We were discounting a ton. We weren't using a pricing matrix, right? That's another one. If the job's short, then it should probably have a lower, price, right? But if you've got an 8-hour heavy duty diesel job, why wouldn't you be charging more per hour for that? Because, a doctor would, right? And that's kind of their word tracks, right? And it's it kind of makes sense. And then that is also something that you can kind of explain, and you start understanding that. And so we started tweaking our pricing. And again, they have the benchmarks also know, wasn't just throwing big prices, it's knowing what the price is in our region of the country where we should be at. And we were low. And once we started tweaking that, once I submitted for a warranty rate increase with Ford, I got a $50 warranty rate increase with Ford. That's massive. That's just all straight to the bottom line. Then we did the same thing with parts and got nearly a 40%, parts markup increase. Just money going to the bottom line because we were leaving it on the table, and not because we're overcharging customers. It's just because we weren't being smart about our pricing. We weren't watching it. We were discounting way too much control for service advice, and they were doing the right thing. Can't blame it. Anybody trying to make a customer happy wants to give something away. It's just, you don't have to, right? In certain times you do, but not all the time. And so it was balancing that. But huge successes, from vendors like that. And it's just these aren't even, earth-shattering types of vendors. They're not even talking AI yet or anything kind of crazy. These are some common vendors, but it's leveraging them the right way, using the tools you got.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, Doug, you've done an incredible job in a very short period of time. You have an awesome story. Love to hear that you were a Marine, of course, a 13-year factory guy, and now this. Do you think you're going to go for another store, or are we kind of happy with one? What do you think you're going to do?
I'd definitely go for another store, but I'd want it just need to be organic, right? Need to be in the same area, and then I think absolutely. And it's just got to come up, but I'm in a rural area, right? So it's not like there's a bunch of dealerships for sale. But if something comes up, somebody's selling, then I'd love to talk to them. I'd love to go in. And for me, it's being a big part of the community. And that's kind of how I worked this deal. The former family had the store for 60 years. They wanted someone that's going to be a part of the community. We give, just, I don't know, 50,000 already has just gone back into the community this year between like charities and sponsorships and things like that. And so that's a big part of it. And that's the part I like. So yeah, absolutely. It's fun. I love it. It's fun.
Just getting started. Do you subscribe to our newsletter? Do you get our newsletter by any chance?
I do.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Because there's we're launching a fixed ops pulse right now as well. But other than that, there's a lot of very tactical data that we share and just best practices and stuff that I think you could really benefit from. So I'm glad to hear that.
I love it.
Awesome. This was fun. This is awesome. Great story. And I'm really, just happy to see how well you're doing. And I hope Fred gets to listen to this. So Fred Beans.
No, Yossi, I'm still shocked that I'm here. Like, I listen to you. So like you've got these amazing dealers. You've got the greats on here. You've got people, massive stores, massive groups. Like, I never dreamed I was getting a call to, come chat with you. I mean, I'm
glad to have you on, man.
I'm shocked. And
you have a great story.
I appreciate it, man.
A great story, brother. Doug Gilmour, thank you so much for coming on. It's been truly fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.